Child's rights are fundamental human rights, essential for promoting the well-being, dignity, and development of children. Upholding this right enables children to grow into capable, confident, and compassionate individuals, contributing positively to our society. In northeastern Nigeria, for example, ensuring child's rights is particularly very challenging due to insurgency, displacement, poverty, and certain cultural beliefs. Compared to other regions in Nigeria, many children lack access to quality education, making them vulnerable to violence, exploitation, and abuse. Additionally, malnutrition, disease, and limited health care services exhibit their plight. To address this, the government, as a matter of urgency, will not just enact but enforce laws protecting children's rights, improve education, health care, and security. Permit me to add that NGOs and community-based organizations must include in their programs activities that promote child's protection initiatives. Religious leaders also have a crucial role in advocating for child's rights without compromise. Listen, children's rights are human rights and are non-negotiable. Every child deserves protection, care, and support to strive. Remember, and finally, every child deserves a childhood. Thank you. My name is Oluwashola Emmanuel Odenrede. I'm a filmmaker and a social worker. Child's rights are fundamental human rights, essential for promoting the well-being, dignity, and development of children. Upholding this right enables children to grow into capable, confident, and compassionate individuals, contributing positively to our society. In northeastern Nigeria, for example, ensuring child's rights is particularly very challenging due to insurgency, displacement, poverty, and certain cultural beliefs. Compared to other regions in Nigeria, many children lack access to quality education, making them vulnerable to violence, exploitation, and abuse. Additionally, malnutrition, disease, and limited health care.
This is the world news on Psalm TV, and I am Abraham Joda. And as the world watches for the new frontier of growth, we say look to Taraba State, Nigeria, a land rich in resources, ripe with opportunities, and ready for bold investment. Here are the major headlines across the world. Ukrainian President Zelensky agrees to meet Putin in Turkey. Hamas to release Israeli-American hostage Aidan Alexander. India reopens 32 airports after ceasefire with Pakistan. Now the news in full. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has agreed to meet Russian President Vladimir Putin in Turkey on Thursday for peace talk, following the U.S. President Donald Trump's public call for him to accept Putin's offer for direct negotiations. Zelensky stated, "I'll be waiting for Putin in Turkey on Thursday," personally in a post on X, while also emphasizing Ukraine's expectations of a full ceasefire starting Monday to provide a basis for diplomacy and end the war. The development comes after European leaders joined Zelensky in demanding a 30-day ceasefire, which Putin rejected in favor of direct talks without preconditions. Trump's Ukraine envoy Keith Kellogg backed the ceasefire demand, but Trump instead urged Zelensky to meet Putin immediately. Putin's proposal for direct talks in Istanbul next Thursday has sparked debate, with Kremlin aide Yuri Ushakov reaffirming Russia's long-standing conditions for negotiations. Zelensky chief of staff Andriy Yermak taunted Putin, saying, "What about Putin? Is he afraid? We will see." Hamas has announced that it will release Israeli-American hostage Edan Alexander, believed to be the last surviving U.S. hostage held by the militant group in Gaza. The release is part of efforts to reach a ceasefire agreement and allow humanitarian aid to enter the besieged enclave. Alexander, 21, was captured by Hamas during its attack on Israel in October 2023 while serving the Israeli army. The release is reportedly a goodwill gesture ahead of U.S. President Donald Trump's visit to the Middle East this week. Qatar, Egypt, and Turkey have jointly facilitated the release with direct forward talks held between officials from the U.S., Qatar, Egypt, and Hamas. U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff said Alexander's release is happening largely because of President Trump and is expected to pick Alexander up tomorrow. The development comes as part of broader efforts to negotiate a ceasefire and exchange prisoners, with 59 hostages remaining in Gaza, including Alexander. The United States and China have agreed to temporarily slash reciprocal tariffs, marking a significant step toward ending a damaging trade war that has stoked fears of recession and unsettled financial markets. According to the deal, U.S. tariffs on Chinese imports will drop to 10% from 145%, while Chinese duties on U.S. imports will fall to 10% from 125%. The new measures will be effective for 90 days, during which both countries will continue negotiations. The agreement has boosted investors' confidence, leading to a surge in stock markets and a rise in the dollar against major currencies. Wall Street stock futures climbed, with Amazon, Apple, and Tesla all surging in pre-market trade. The deal is expected to ease supply chain disruption, reduce fears of stagflation, and potentially avert a global recession. U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent emphasized that both countries represented their national interests well and expressed a shared interest in balanced trade. India has reopened 32 airports that were shut during clashes with neighboring Pakistan, following a ceasefire agreement over the weekend. The airport authorities of India announced that the airports are now available for civil aircraft operations with immediate effect. The 32 airports that were temporarily closed include those in border areas of Jammu and Kashmir and Punjab. The decision to reopen airports comes after Pakistan and India agreed to a ceasefire, which has brought a measure of calm to the region. India's top airline Indigo will progressively commence operation on previously closed routes. Pakistan's airport authority fully reopened its airspace on Saturday, allowing the resumed flight operations across both countries. The airport closures were part of the precautionary measures taken during a recent bout of cross-border tensions. The reopening of airports and flight routes marks a step towards de-escalation and the restoration of regular connectivity in the region. The Kurdistan Workers' Party (PKK) militant group has decided to disband and end its armed struggle against the Turkish state after more than 4 decades of conflict. The historic decision was announced by the group itself, citing the completion of its historic mission and its determination to solve the Kurdish issue through democratic policies. The PKK's decision to disband is expected to have significant implications for Turkey's political and economic stability, as well as for the region. With over 40,000 people killed in the conflict since 1984, the move is seen as a major step towards peace and stability. Turkey's President Tayyip Erdogan now has the opportunity to boost development in the mainly Kurdish southeast, where the insurgency has impaired the regional economy for decades. Ahmet Selik, spokesperson for Erdogan's ruling AK party, welcomed the decision as an important step towards a terror-free Turkey. However, details on how the disarmament and breakup of the PKK will happen in practice remain unclear. The first group of 49 white South Africans granted refugee status under a U.S. program boarded a flight to the United States, deepening tensions between the two nations. The Trump administration decision to prioritize Afrikaners, descendants of mostly Dutch settlers, has sparked controversy and criticism from South African authorities. South African government dispute the notion that white citizens face persecution, citing significant wealth disparities between whites and black majority. Despite whites owning 3/4 of private land and holding about 20 times the wealth of black South Africans, the Trump administration claims they are victims of racial discrimination. The South African government has stated it won't stand in their way, but emphasizes that they ain't refugees. The move comes amid heightened racial tensions in South Africa over lands and jobs, further straining the relationship between the two countries. U.S. President Donald Trump has previously cut all U.S. financial assistance to South Africa, citing disapproval of his land policy and genocidal case against Israel. At least 3 people, including 2 children aged 3 and 4, have died in a Mediterranean Sea crossing from Libya to Italy. A German sea rescue charity Rescape rescued 59 survivors on Saturday after spotting a rubber boat floating adrift south of the Italian island of Lampedusa. The charity reported that the children likely died from thirst a day before rescue efforts began. The survivors suffered chemical burns from saltwater and fuel, with 2 children and 4 adults in critical conditions handed over to the Italian Coast Guard for urgent medical attention. The boat's engine failed after 1 day of navigation, leaving migrants exposed to harsh weather conditions. This tragic incident highlights the dangers of the central Mediterranean route, where nearly 25,000 migrants have died or gone missing since 2014, including around 1,700 last year and 378 so far this year. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio has separate calls with British Foreign Secretary David Lammy and German Chancellor Friedrich Merz, reaffirming the U.S. stance on the war in Ukraine. Rubio and Lammy also discussed ongoing tensions between India and Pakistan, calling for both countries to maintain the ceasefire and continue communication. The U.S. supports direct dialogue between India and Pakistan to improve communications and reduce tension. Rubio emphasized the importance of maintaining ceasefire and continue communications between India and Pakistan. The U.S. supports direct dialogue between the two nations to improve communications and reduce tensions. Rubio and Merz discussed their shared goal of ending the war in Ukraine, while Rubio reaffirmed the U.S. stance on the conflict. The calls highlight the importance of international cooperation in addressing global conflicts and promoting peace and stability. Ukraine President Volodymyr Zelensky has also agreed to meet Russian President Putin in Turkey on Thursday. Now, moving further to another story, we have it that this implies Kiev would need to agree to permanent neutrality and accept Russian control over certain areas of Ukraine. Trump, who has power to influence Washington's crucial supply of arms to Ukraine, took a different stand, urging Ukraine to agree to talks immediately. And that is it on Psalm TV World News, as the world